Hello and welcome, everybody. MTG Gaming Bob here.
And Matt here.
And we're going to talk about Kamigawa today, our favorite cards from it, and what we think about the set, whether we think it's a buy or a don't buy. So let's get started right into it. Matt, you've got one of your favorite cards up on the screen here.
Yeah, this card, I actually got some experience playing against it. I haven't actually played it myself, but I've played against it many times in the Jake and Joel Magic's. They have like a league that they do every month, and this commander was pretty rampant, and I guess I'll just read the card so people know what it does. It's just a 4 mana, I think it's Mardu, and a colorless. 4/4 flying trample. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each target, and spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast for each target. And the thing that really breaks this card is that anything with X, as long as X is X colorless, then it's just free. So Comet Storm and Fireball and just anything to add additional targets. If it adds additional target for the mana, Hanada just makes it free.
It also seems very stacksy. Are people playing stacks pieces with it?
Not really. It's already stacksy enough on itself. Because, I mean, you're talking about the spells cost 1 more for each opponent's card to cast. Yeah, I mean, like, it screwed me over a few times when I'm like, I can counter. Oh, nope, I need an extra mana because even a counter spell targets the spell to target. So still, I mean, even counter spells cost 1 more to cast. It's pretty brutal, actually.
Since it's white, you know, the white counter spell could come into play.
Yeah.
And now it'll cost you 2. Yeah, I mean, it seems very stacksy, and, you know, having white and blue available, you know, just, you could tax the living daylight out of people, and,
yeah, typically what the Hanada players do is they fireball you, and they fireball everybody all at once because they can just add additional targets for free, and they have many different ways to do all kinds of crazy shenanigans. It's just for 30-cent rare, I mean, it's a pretty darn good. I mean, I don't know if it's like competitive, but as far as like tabletop Magic, it can cause some crazy things to happen.
Yeah, it seems interesting.
There's plenty of bounce spells that have X in it that can just bounce everything on the board that you want. There's just, I don't know what they were thinking when they made this card, but I mean, I guess it really hasn't, like, I mean, it's clearly, with it only being 30 cents, it's not like changing the meta, so I guess it's probably not that crazy. But it feels pretty degenerate when you're playing against it. You're just like, all right, what degeneracy thing is the Hanada player going to do now? And it actually kind of, it makes them the arch nemesis almost, where like everybody's trying to go against it because they want to control that player. Like, it draws a lot of salt and hate for sure.
So what other cards have you got here for Kamigawa that
our next one we got here is Ishin 2 Heavens as 1. This is the red, black, white, 3/4. If a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Ishin's interesting. There's so many things that can trigger from this that just make you happy. I mean, Sun Titan, yeah. Grave Titan, Inferno Titan, all of the Titans in the colors. I mean, there's better things too, but I mean, any attack trigger. You've got crazy things like Itali Primal Storm, where you get to exile 2 of everything, or 2 cards from the top of every player's deck and play them for free. Yeah. That's a pretty bonkers one that I remember.
Isn't there also that black, is Archon of Cruelty?
Archon of Cruelty is nutty. Yeah, it's really good. That card is actually more of a blowout than I could have ever imagined. I mean, they lose 3 life, discard a card, sacrifice a creature, you gain 3 life, you draw a card. There's the Emberwild Captain, which is the 4 mana 4/2. You become the monarch when you play it. And then whenever an opponent attacks you while you're the monarch, Emberwild Captain deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards in their hand. So they would, because it's a permanent you control and it's a trigger off of their attack, it actually doubles the damage that they'll do per card in their hand. Pretty good.
Wow. Yeah, it seems like there's certainly a lot of nuttiness that Ishin is destined for, and super low costed, in all honesty, for 3/4, which actually could end up playing into one of the cards that I'm going to show a little later. But yeah, you know, 3 cost is just silly.
I think 3 cost, in my opinion, is like that's my sweet spot for a commander. It's the number I like the most out of all the commander costs so far. I think I like 3. It's most impactful. Comes down early. Doesn't cost a ton to cast again when it dies, because he's gonna die.
I like 0. Zero's good.
Well, ideally. Next up, we've got Lion Sash. Go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, Lion Sash I've been talking about since before the release. And what I find is when I'm watching other channels and I'm seeing deck techs and they're talking about how they're, you know, trying to improve somebody's deck, I almost always think of Lion Sash in just about any format. I mean, 2 cost. What it does is just insane. It puts an artifact on the board. It puts a creature on the board. It puts an equipment on the board. It is targeted graveyard hate on command. It has a sort of sneaky evasion once you put it on another creature. They kill the creature, but this is an equipment, right? So it does so many different things. It gets pumpable. If they don't want to put creatures that are permanents in their graveyard and they start killing your creatures, you can start exiling your own creatures to make your others tougher. It's just, I mean, what's bad about this card? That, like, it goes in every format and just about every deck that plays white, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's kind of a better Scavenging Ooze because it's exile target card from a graveyard, and as long as it's a permanent, which it's gonna be for, I don't know what. I don't know if you can ever, when can you ever exile a non-permanent card? Maybe when it hits the graveyard before it fizzles? I don't know.
No. You exile, no, you can exile
instant or sorceries. Yeah, I see.
For people that, I mean, even in those corner cases, right, where people are trying to flashback cards from their graveyard for sorceries and instants, right? You can nuke those things out of there. It's, you know, it's just a beautiful little card. It only costs 1 to activate. It's just, what a, you know, pocket little flexible card. If you need a creature, it's a creature. If you need an equipment, it's an equipment. If you need the graveyard hate at, you know, basically instant speed, as long as you got 1 white mana open. I this is my little darling out of the whole set, and at a couple of bucks, I think it's underpriced, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was gonna say that for $2.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have them, and if you haven't played with it and you have a white deck out there, just try it. Just it's not one of those cards that's going to be sitting in your hand going, man, I wish I could play this Mana Tithe. I'm looking at you for 12 turns. You know, you're going to put it on the board, right? And if they target it for removal, okay, it's not like it's, you know, gut wrenching and crushing. It's just such a wonderful little flexible card.
I've played against it, and it was like an enchantment deck or of some sort, but he had put it in there because of there being some graveyard synergies in the league that I was in, and I was playing a deck that definitely needed my graveyard, and this I actually countered, and then he played Scavenging Ooze after that, and I was just like, yeah, I'm dismantled. That it's really hard to play a Reanimator deck when you have no graveyard, so things like this.
And just here's a deck tech against Beamtown Bullies.
Yeah,
right.
This takes away all the degeneracy of a lot of decks for just a couple of white mana.
I think it's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful little card. It's super cheap. It's super flexible. It's going to go in a ton of decks. I don't even think it's gotten its, you know, due yet. I played it I'm playing it in Standard on Arena, and I love it.
I wonder. I mean, Scavenging Ooze is the closest thing I can think of, and that's a 50-cent card. So I wonder if it's appropriately priced at $2. Interesting to think about.
Well, Scavenging Ooze has been printed like a lot of times.
True.
Like there's a bunch of them out there. So I think it was even in the like the welcome cards a year ago or so, like in the giveaways, there was like
yeah. In the store, the store giveaways, it was part of one of the promos.
Promo.
Yep. It's like, I got one.
And quite honestly, you know, at this point, you know, Scooz is not a standard card, so yeah. I don't see a lot of like modern decks playing Scooz. I don't know how wonderful this is going to fit into other things. I don't know, maybe Pioneer. I'm not a Pioneer expert, so anybody out there who's a Pioneer expert, please leave a comment below and let us know what you think about Lion Sash for Pioneer. I like it in Standard, and I love it in Commander, especially in Commander. Graveyard Hate in Commander is huge. So let us know. Let us know what you think of Lion Sash in the comments below. Actually, all the cards we're talking about today, if you have a comment on them, if you played against them and they just crushed your face, you know, let us know how your Chuck Norris experience went with some of these cards.
All right, next up we have the Reality Chip.
That's another one of my little darlings. Now, I didn't love this at release, and I know it got a lot of hype at release, and it has dropped through the floor since then. But I'll say this, playing at least in standard, I don't know how well this is going to play in Commander. But being able to look at the top of your library is always a huge thing to me, you know, because I play with a lot of like shuffle effects and whatnot. Like say you have your fetch lands or something you're about to pop and you're like, ooh, I really need that next card, right?
Yeah.
And you may look at it. You don't play with it revealed. You may look at it at any time.
It's kind of like a blue version of what is that green?
Corfer?
Courser of Crufix.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. You can play lands from
And
the top. You can cast spells from the top, as long as it attacks to a creature, which it should be fine to do.
I mean, it's okay. It's a decent card, and at the price that it's at like less than $2, I think this has a place moving forward. It's another one again that puts multiple types for, you know, any kind of types matter on the board. You have an artifact, you have a creature, it's 2 casting costs, it's a good early blocker, it's an equipment, and it's a jellyfish. I mean, look at that. Look at the types box there. It is really tiny because it's just about everything. It's a legendary artifact, creature, equipment, jellyfish. I mean, could you put more in that card type? I don't think so. You're gonna have to make larger cards, have it wrap around.
I think it's a pretty solid card. I haven't actually played with it yet, but oh no, I lied. I did play with it. I played with it when I played my. I think I played a red blue like Mecha Core Titan deck. I think I had one of these.
Yeah, you know, for blue, being able to, you know, basically look at the top of your deck is always like a crucial thing in a lot of control type decks. So being able to look at the top and then doing something with it, you know, you can play lands and cast spells. Now that's not creatures, right? So this is clearly targeting a non-creature type deck. But and that's probably the biggest drawback is that you have to equip it to a creature in a deck that's probably going to be heavily reliant on spells. So I think it's fairly costed for a card. I love that when they do that. I think that the 1 and a blue for a 0/4 basically is almost like a wall unless you can pump it up somehow. But like I said, it's putting, you know, Urza loves artifacts on the table, so I would put this in an Urza deck. I think that, you know, there's lots of room and lots of decks out there for a card like this.
Yeah, I think it's pretty great. Next up, we've got Mech Titan Core. I always call it Mecha Core Titan because I don't know how to read apparently. Mech Titan Core.
It's not a natural name to roll off the tongue. Mech Titan. That's not really a groovy word to roll off the tongue.
I think Mecha Titan makes more sense.
I think that's how I've heard more people pronounce it as Mecha Titan.
Yeah,
but it's not.
So the funny thing about this card is when I first did a draft, when the set first released, I did a draft on Arena. Whoops. And spoiler. I did a draft and I saw this card and I'm like, I'll read it. 2 mana for a 2/4 crew 2. That's like the basic artifact. You can pay 5 colorless mana, exile Mech Titan Core, and 4 other artifact creatures and/or vehicles you control. Create Mech Titan, a legendary 10/10 construct artifact creature token with flying, vigilance, trample, lifelink, and haste. That's all colors. When that token leaves the battlefield, return all cards exiled with Mech Core Titan, except for Mech Core Titan, to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control. So when I first read this card, I'm like, this is a meme. I'm not going to be able to get to do this, but I'm going to make a deck around it because it seems fun as hell. And you can go look at the videos. I actually got this off way more than I thought I would. It's actually fairly easy to do. It's just nutty.
I mean, it's got all kinds of weaknesses to it, but if you can actually get it to pop, I mean, as long as it doesn't die immediately, you know, it's...
Well, that's the thing.
It's brutal.
Even if it dies immediately, you still got all your stuff back. You don't lose anything. As long as...
Well, you would lose your Mech Titan.
Sure, you lose the 10/10. That sucks.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, in one of the games that I played, somebody stole my Mech Titan after I hit him down to 1, and then they killed me with my own card.
I mean, you lose the Mech Titan if they kill it. Like, it doesn't come back. Just the other things that you exiled did.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I mean, I've played with it. I have a couple decks that I play against Sparky all the time, and it's fun. It's a fun card. I don't know that it's backbreaking. I think it's
No.
probably the right price at 32 cents. Like you said, it's more of a let's have fun with Magic
Yeah.
kind of card. It's not a, ooh, this is a great card. It's certainly very niche, but I'm glad that it appealed to you. And I think that we need to get back to more of that fun Magic. Like we keep talking about it all the time on different channels, and you know, Magic's supposed to be fun. And if you want to play some cards like this that do a thing and it pops and you're like, hey, I did a thing at least. I don't even care if I win or lose. It popped and I had fun doing it.
And there are cards that get cards back from exile if you're playing in a non-standard format. There's the one white card that you could take a card from exile and put into your graveyard. I forgot what it's called, but I played in my Boros deck, my Osgear. But yeah, you can do that. You'd have the ability to if it gets exiled, or well, when you use it, it doesn't get exiled itself. You can get it back. There's plenty of ways, I'm sure. But yeah, it's a great card, I think, for 32 cents. I love it. It gave me lots of joy playing it and actually making the Titan and crushing people. It was very satisfying.
Fun. And that's what it's supposed to be.
And then lastly, we have Secluded Courtyard.
So I think this card gets ignored a little bit because of the Boseiju and the Otawara and the Eiganjo. But if you really look at what this card does, this is an amazing card to play in a tribal deck, right? So just about any tribal deck would benefit. Actually, I can't think of a tribal deck that wouldn't benefit from this card, especially in the commander field. Clearly, Matt and I are far more interested in commander than we are other formats in Magic. And this is one that comes in non-tapped, right? They love to tap lands lately that do anything.
Yeah.
Or some way it comes in tapped or some condition. There's no condition where this comes in tapped, right?
And it's going to tap for colorless as well.
It'll tap for a colorless regardless for all of your non-creature types of the type you choose. But let's read it. As it comes into play, choose a creature type. You can tap it to add one colorless, or you can tap it to add one of any color mana. Spend it only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type or activate an ability of a creature or creature of the card type chosen. Wow, I did not read that at all, but it's basically what it does.
Yeah, I mean, you get the gist of it.
It's $1.88, and it's essentially just a rainbow land for tribal.
I will say for an uncommon, being $2 isn't a bad thing. I think it's seeing some relevancy, or it's rare to find. You know, like it might be one of those rare uncommons.
And I don't have any out of the Kamigawa that I've cracked. I have not pulled a Secluded Courtyard, and I want one because I think that this just screams elemental deck, right? Especially the 4-color Omnath type decks that are basically all elementals. Wow, you know, sliver decks.
It looks good, like art-wise as well. Doesn't look bad.
You know, I realize that a lot of tribals are kind of monocolored or just 2-colored, but start thinking in terms of, you know, like I said, like the 4-color elementals or sliver decks, you know, where you have 4 or 5 colors, even 3-color, you know, this is fantastic for, I don't know, maybe some of the new demons or angels, or, you know, just you insert card type here. This is a fantastic land that I think has virtually no drawbacks.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid land. $2 for an uncommon. Not coming into play tapped is big. If it came into play tapped, I wouldn't even talk about it. I would shun you and prevent you from talking about it.
Which I'm really surprised that this wasn't a rare. Had they put rare on this, I think, or a mythic, I think it would have a lot more hype to it, because I think it is just that good.
I feel like if it were rare, it would have to have a land type of some sort that makes it fetchable. I was trying to think of like a prismatic land type that like it would like you could fetch it from all lands. That'd be good.
Well, but Boseiju doesn't have a land type.
No, but it does other things.
It does do other things. To notice that we haven't been breaking the bank tonight here with the cards that we brought up. You know, all the cards are just like a couple of bucks, and you know, people are lauding the set because it's, you know, valuable set. It's got decent value to it, but I think there's value in super playable cards, and I think a lot of these cards are going to continue to endure even after all the hype's over, they're just very clutch cards that you're going to see. Maybe not Mech Titan Core, but maybe not Reality Chip. But I think you're going to continue to see a lot of these cards being played in Commander for a long time. And they're not going to break the bank now. Maybe they'll even go down more. I don't know. That's not the point of this video. The point of this video was to point out cards that we really liked and played with and outperformed what we expected right from the very start. And certainly I think Secluded Courtyard falls into that category. So overall, Matt, what do you think about Kamigawa? We did a double feature, don't buy this, or should you buy this? How do you feel about Kamigawa Neon Dynasty?
I mean, I think it's pretty easy to recommend buying it. There's plenty of cards. If you're talking about value, there's plenty of cards with value that make it pretty hard to lose money in opening, like the collector's boosters. There's just tons of hits that you can hit that it just pays for, like the Wandering Emperors and the Besiegers and there's just tons of cards that just they have value. But I don't know about set and draft boosters. I think as long as they're still, MSRP, I think it'll be fine. I think the set's got a ton of good cards in it.
I'll agree with you. I'll say for me, this is certainly on the buy list. Now, if you're buying for value, that's a whole different story. If you can get your hands reasonably on the collector boxes, I would buy and potentially hold. The set boxes are what set boxes are, and that's another hold type thing. Now, as far as draft goes, because this is a standard set, I'm not a huge fan of targeting standard sets unless they're at a huge discount, especially for draft. Yeah. And I'll tell you why. There are too many other products that they're coming out with that are really geared towards the draft style play. We'll talk about Commander Legends, Jumpstart. These are the new style of draft boxes. So standard draft, unfortunately, just doesn't seem to have the value. They're purposely putting the value in the set and collector boxes. So I would say collector box, buy. Set box if you want to open it later or try to get the cards that you're looking for and hit some value, maybe a list card, buy. Draft boxes, unfortunately, are kind of a thumbs down for me. And that's going to be for all standard sets.
I think buy for me is both collectors and set as well. And I think buy as well for draft if you intend to actually draft it. I think it was actually a fun set to draft.
If you're going to actually draft it. Right?
Yep. If you got some friends that want to draft the set and want to experience it, you could potentially open up some really valuable cards and get some cards that are fun to play as well.
One thing that we didn't touch on here, which is funny, we really didn't go over the Commander precons, and I'll say that I don't have a lot of info on the Commander precons, which is why I basically kind of steered away from that tonight. I have not heard all the rage about those precons and how good they are and how easy they are to upgrade. That being said, in general, WotC does a very good job at creating Commander precons that are easily playable for a newer player and easily upgradable for just about every set now. Yeah,
I've heard the Shorikai Genesis engine was a pretty good one to be able to just grab and play, and it has a decent power level. I don't know about the Shishiro one. I've played against the Shishiro deck, but I don't know about how good just the actual Commander deck is.
And that's about all I've got for Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Let us know what you think in the comments below. What cards do you love that we didn't mention here that outperformed your expectations? Love to hear from you. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks, Matt, for reviewing these with me.
Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.